What's up, everyone? My name is Alex, and I use he, him, his pronouns or AMR's pronouns, and I wanted to talk about what gender neutral means to me and how it ties in with my malehood. I started down this long rabbit hole of learning about gender neutral identities and what that type of gender means because it's first of all very interesting to learn about, and I wanted to kind of expand my knowledge of more than just male related identities. And I always thought that part of my gender was neutral in some way, and I wanted to learn more about what that meant because I figured the word gender neutral sounds like it makes sense in my head, but I never really looked into why it made sense or why I had some kind of connection with this. So that sparked me looking up all kinds of terminology on the internet under like the gender neutral umbrella of terms, I guess, is what you'd call it. So for the recap, I had a video. It is the most viewed video on my channel, and it's all about, quantifying my gender experience, part male, part something else. And I had come to the conclusion that the other part, it's not genderless. I had figured that it's probably gender neutral. That was the most fitting thing for that other part of the identity. So that was a conclusion I came to about my identity, and I never looked further into that. I never really questioned why did I say part gender neutral? Why did I say that fraction of my identity is neutral without really explaining the details on that? And of course, I call myself a non-binary man, and I've come to realize that's not contradictory. You can be a non-binary man, a non-binary woman. You can be a non-binary genderless person. You can be a genderless man. It can really go in any direction, and you wouldn't be contradicting yourself because those terms mean something specific to you. You have a reason for using those terms. I have a reason for calling myself a non-binary man, and I realized that other qualifiers can work without being contradictory. It's not just I can be non-binary and any gender at all, including binary genders. Gender neutrality, the same thing. Gender neutral terms, not ungendered terms, like gender neutral terms like person or folks, that's not what I mean, but gender neutral as an actual gender experience. I forgot that's also a large amount of identities, and a lot of them could be related to the gender binary. A lot of them can be genderless, and I mean, it's really just up to the individual on how they decide to use those terms for themselves. So while I was looking up gender terms, and just, it was partly out of boredom, I wasn't really looking for anything, but I came across the term neutroi, which is, that term's been around for quite a while from what I remember. I think when I started learning about agender, things that were not male, female, or non-binary, I learned about the term neutroi. So I've been aware of that term, but I never for some reason I never thought to really look into that term. I thought it was a singular static gender that meant one thing. I don't know what I thought that term meant. I figured something like a completely neutral gender all the way through. I thought there was a very specific use for that word, and I never thought to even touch it. But I learned that it's an umbrella term, like most of our terms for genders. It ranges anywhere from epicenity to neutrality to genderlessness. That's kind of the scale of being neutroi or having a neutral gender. Epicenity, being epicene, that's the old or the newer word for androgynous. It's still been around pretty much just as long as that word, but people are adopting epicene over androgynous for various reasons, outdatedness and such. But it ranges from, being a blend of both to being a blend of both or in between to being completely neutral to being completely null, void, non-existent, genderless. So it there's a lot of range, and it does overlap with that other part of the demi-boy label that I've been trying to place a name for. The only thing I struggle with is, like, how do you tie that in with a gender identity? Do you say a neutroi demi guy? Do you say a neutroi man? A demi-neutroi demi guy? That sounds cool, but also that is a mouthful. I don't want to say a gender-neutral man, because then that sounds like I am trying to degender myself. That's another thing I want to talk about in another video, is degendering, placing non-gender terms and gender-neutral pronouns on me when that is not what my gender experience is. It does not fit for my particular gender. So I don't want to say gender neutral and then automatically people are using they, them pronouns for me. That I'm trying to avoid that. So, like, trying to tie in this with my identity while also placing the emphasis on being a man, like that's the struggle that I have. So how do I know? How do I know that neutroi, or like gender neutrality in general, how do I know that that is even a label that fits me, something that describes my gender experience in a way that makes sense to me? I know that my identity does not feel fluid. I know that there isn't spikes of gender intensity. That's, gender flux. I'm not multigender. I'm not like both or in between. It's not part agender. Like, I have gone over the long list of what I'm not, what does not feel right for me, which helps. It really helps to first go over what you're sure you're not before exploring what you are, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I've always been a big proponent of, like, well, if you're trying to figure yourself out, make a list of what you're not first, and then go over the things that you feel like you relate to. In my case, gender neutrality, or being like neutroi, that's such a varied experience, and I started reading like other people's experience with being neutroi, and there were a lot of stories of like men and women being neutroi, genderless people being neutroi people who saw their gender as something outside of the trinary of male, female, and non-binary, while not being genderless, like still having a gender. I know for me, it's not a gender alignment, so it's not something that vaguely relates to me but is not actually my gender. It feels like a solid gender. It feels like a very tangible part of my gender. My understanding was, like, if I'm a demi-boy, part male, and that other part I thought was just something nebulous, something unnameable, something of somewhat of a gray area that I just did not know about, could not touch, could not place, but it's starting to feel more tangible, and I'm learning that there's a name for that other part. So that's where I started looking up terminology, realizing that, like, there is no gray area there. Like, there's definitely something there. It's just finding the language to describe it is the biggest struggle for me. Just because, like, I always talk about struggling with labels, struggling with trying to find something that accurately describes, what I am and, like, how my gender manifests. And I guess in the grand scheme of things, just in the general public, I don't really need a hyper-specific label to describe everything. It really only helps to have the proper language in queer spaces, then it makes sense where I can talk about, well, yeah, I feel demi male and also demi neutroi, like, or demi neutral, I guess, because I don't know if a lot of people know what neutroi is. I'm also pronouncing it in the worst way, but that's not my fault. It's, what is it called? Franglais, which is like a French and English, like, amalgamation of words, kind of like Spanglish, but probably with less offensive connotations. But it's a mix of a French and an English word. So like the French word toi, which is like a third gender, something like a tertiary gender, I guess, is what they're going for, and then neutral being the English word in the front. So I don't pronounce it correctly, or at least not in the way that you'd think that you'd pronounce it if it was partially a French word. My French isn't great, but yeah. But that's why I've been calling it. I've always called it neutroi. I always take off the last syllable as like a faux like French pronunciation, but it's wrong either way, I guess. But that's also the struggle I have, is finding a term that like sounds like it makes sense. Like demi boy, like the older I get, the more I hate that word. I almost swore, but the more I just like hate that word, because it sounds so infantilizing, but demi man doesn't make sense. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but yeah, that's how I pronounce it, is neutroi, and a lot of people pronounce it that way anyway, but I know it is technically not quite the way you're supposed to pronounce it, but I don't know. Labels aside, part male, part gender neutral sounds like it fits. It fits better than any other label, and I don't mind just calling it that, part male, part gender neutral, or just demi male. Like, I don't mind just calling it that. And yeah, I mean, no one asked what that other part was. I don't have to qualify that. I don't have to like explain that part of the identity, I guess, unless it's like relevant, unless it comes up in conversation, then I can explain like, oh, this is what I experience. Like, I'm not going to introduce myself and be like, hey, I'm Alex, he, him, his pronouns. Let me get the chart out to talk about how you can break down my gender identity, because that it doesn't quite make sense in that particular context. It really only works if I'm in certain online spaces, certain queer spaces where we're actually discussing gender. A space like this on YouTube makes sense. I'm still going to call myself a demi guy. I mean, in most spaces, I mean, in general, I just call myself a man. I work with a lot of cis-het people, and I don't think, well, I guess that isn't relevant. I work with a lot of cisgender people, let's just say that. And like, I don't need to be talking about my gender at length, especially if like I'm not trying to out myself. I'm pretty open about being trans. A couple people know about it at work, but I don't go into detail about it. And if no one asks, then I don't really have anything to tell, I guess. So I mean, I guess that's kind of it. Like, finding these labels really only works if, works as a way to connect with the queer community, like a way to fit in, a way to find my niche, I guess, find like kind of where I fall on the gender spectrum, and like being able to quantify and qualify my gender experience. Like that, it's still important to me, just not in every single situation. So while I am always questioning and obsessing over labels and learning new things about labels, it really, like, in certain aspects of my life, it doesn't matter that much. It's really a very personal journey. It's like, it's a way for me to learn more about myself. So no one really needs to know. I don't really need to have it all figured out, I guess. My throat is not doing well. I just woke up and then just started recording. Like the first thing I said in the morning was me introducing this video. So that like I haven't given my voice time to really like do anything. So my voice probably sounds a little raspy. So sorry about that. I keep putting cuts in the video because I keep drinking my water. Also, I had a note here that maybe with this new information about my gender and how I view my gender way more flexibly than when I like first discovered that I was trans, maybe my transition goals and wants and needs will change, but that is going to be an entirely different video that I want to go over. I did have a video about body stuff and transitioning, I believe, but I think that I should do a video on very specific transition goals that don't have anything to do with, well, if I want to pass as male, like I should be doing this. I think I want to go into like what I really want, what really like fits for me. But yeah, I think a couple of my views about gender transitioning, a couple of like my goals for that have kind of shifted a little, and I would love to do a video on that, because I mean transitioning, now I'm realizing transitioning is like so flexible. Like people undergo gender transitioning and a hormone replacement therapy in so many different ways that like there's so many possibilities to like having the body that fits your gender experience. It does not have to be a very strict dichotomy of male body, female body, so, or genderless. That's like the other way, or neutral, like that's the other way people might transition, but it's like it doesn't have to be so strict. So I'm definitely going to do a video on that. This video went off a little bit, but that's okay because I needed to stretch this video out. I was going to do a video today on romantic attraction, and then I crossed it out because I want to rewrite it and combine it with another video that I was going to do later on. So I replaced this one in the schedule with a video that goes over a much newer topic, a much newer self-realization, I guess. So yeah, this I wrote this episode like 2 days ago, at least as of recording this. Like in the middle of January is when I ended up writing this episode, so it's fairly new, and I don't know if it's a topic I might revisit. I keep doing a lot of topics on gender and labels for gender, and I want to kind of get outside of that like every so often and talk about other things, because there's so many different aspects of identity that I want to cover, and that's just like it kind of makes it so that the content doesn't get so stale. So question of the week, I guess since these go up every week, I can still call it the question of the week. Do you consider any part of your gender to be neutral, and what is that like for you? What is your experience with gender neutrality, if that like applies to you? I really do try to put a question out that is broad enough where people can like actually talk about it. I don't want it to be so hyper specific to my experience. I don't expect like all demi-guys to respond to this comment. So that's just kind of for anyone who experiences a gender neutral identity in any part at all. I just want to know what that's like. I want to see what other people's stories are, what other people's experiences are, because like that's kind of how everyone learns, is learning about other people's experiences. And it's why I put these videos out in the first place, because I just want to, I guess, allow like young queer people to find this information and maybe realize that someone else has that same experience they do. And like, it's an older person, like that. This is a queer adult. This is a guy in his 30s who is also demigender talking about these experiences. Like, I think it's important that I put content out like that so people can relate to it, and feel validated in that, like, they don't feel like it's a phase. They don't feel like maybe they're faking. I like that people can kind of find that validation, I guess. So I guess that's kind of all I have for today. I hope everyone is doing okay. Right now it is snowing, and I have to drive out of town in, I'm assuming, a few hours. So I'm going to be doing that and just kind of enjoying my day off and, planning for more videos. I have so many plans for this channel, so many ideas that I want to cover, and I'm just not getting to them all fast enough. And I haven't been posting a lot of filler content, mostly because that's just every once in a while I might put out like filler content, but I've stopped scheduling it for specific days, and I just record them whenever I feel like it, kind of thing. But that's about it. Also, update. Oh yeah, update. I think, I don't know where I linked it. It might be in my YouTube about page, and it might be in the description of my videos now, but I have a card. That's the website, CARRD. I have a card with all of my information, my contact information, where to find me on the internet, and I have a portfolio full of every single flag that I've ever made, for Tumblr requests, or flags for identities that didn't have flags, stuff that I've shown off on the Gender Collector Himself blog. I do not have that blog anymore. It was becoming overwhelming to keep up with something that wasn't really helpful to what I'm doing for YouTube stuff. So I have a giant portfolio of work, and I also have a page on that card with references to where I came up with coining new terminology, new male-related terminology. I have resources on where my work is stemming from, because I do talk about identities that I've coined, flags that I've made, and I have a list of this is where I kind of learned about a lot of these identities. I don't know if that'll change. I don't know how helpful that is being on my card, but it relates to the graphic design work that I do. And it's got other resources for where to find pronouns, where to find new gender terminology and stuff. So it could be helpful to someone, but it's very much linked to the kind of work that I do. So it's very specific to my own gender experience. But if you're interested, it'll be in the description. It'll be, I link it on my Twitter. I have it everywhere. So check that out if you're interested. I finally put it together with it's basically a portfolio sort of thing, with information on what I do as a creator and where you can find me, where you can find my work, sort of thing. And also join the Discord server. I do flag requests over there, and there's places where you can talk about identity talk and discuss that week's topic. So join the Discord server, hang out with other people who talk about identity. It's not specific to this channel, so even people who don't watch this content are over there on that channels or on that server. So check that out, and that's about it. I am signing off for now. See you later.